Hello, my friends. This is The Art of Prepping. Thanks for joining me today. These are my top 10 dangers or hazards on Alone, Season 3 in Patagonia, South America. The first is hypothermia. I think that we all know that in the previous two seasons in Vancouver, they were dealing with exposure issues on a constant basis. Vancouver and Patagonia both are what you would consider a pretty cool climate area. Even in the summertime, it is possible at night to get hypothermia. So this is something that we have to be mindful of that the contestants have to battle throughout the season. Number two, injury. Unfortunately, though, these injuries typically happen from self-inflicted accidents. Um, and it could be a burn, a cut, exposure, or I should say probably an overexposure from the environment. So these are things that have happened and will probably happen in the future, unfortunately. And I think a lot of injuries are because people are either doing too much too fast, they get too comfortable with what they're doing, they lose mental focus because maybe their blood sugar's low, or the overall stress and pressure that they put on themselves or their environment puts on them can cause an individual to deviate from safe behavior to the one that may be less productive and or more careless, and therefore to cause an injury. And while it's not being critical on anyone individually, it's something that we all have happened. I know for me personally, I have hurt myself just because I was focusing on the wrong thing and had the wrong priorities out in the woods and cut myself pretty bad. So, I mean, it happens to the best of us. And we saw in previous episodes that people with very high level of skills injuring themselves. And so no one's immune from injury. Number three, loss of mental focus and drive. Basically, the emotions get the best of you. And so psychologically, we have to protect ourselves from running thoughts, all kinds of guilt and feelings of shame and low self-esteem. These things can creep in, our dark side, if you will. If you give someone enough time alone, as this show is all about, things will come out of the closet. And so we have to be not so much like a busybody to distract ourselves consistently from having thoughts and emotions, but we have to be, pretty choosy about which ones we want to actually think and participate in. So we do have control over our thoughts and our mind if we choose to do such. Number four, wildlife. The threat from wildlife is very much present there in Patagonia. In particular, I have a top five of animals that I would be, very cautious about. I don't know that area very, very specifically, but I do know these five are present, and there's probably at least another five that I don't know much about. But I would say that bear, coyote, wolf, especially wild boar being over 400 pounds, and pumas, those are a major threat to humans. And while those animals don't exactly hunt or stalk humans, purposefully, they will view you as a food source, especially if they're hungry or if they are threatened, they will attack. So those are something to be a bit to be aware of if they're out in the woods. And of course, that's where they are. And so wildlife. Number five, effects from starvation. Of course, this is uh, basically just because of low caloric intake, and because of their low caloric intake, their blood sugar is low, causing a lot of or medley of problems like lethargic behavior, lower affect that may possibly lead into depressive thinking or actions, low energy, difficulty thinking. No doubt about that. I know when I go on fast and stuff, that toward the end of a fast, especially if it's like a 24-hour fast or 18-hour fast, within the last few hours of the fast, my thinking does get a little bit more cloudy. And so I can imagine for those who don't eat for several days, on this show and on the previous seasons, it could be a difficult thing to get your mind straight. So let's go to number six now, which is equipment or gear malfunction. Can you imagine if your boots tore up or your clothing got torn or your cutting tool broke? If your ferrocerium rod fell into the fire pit, like we possibly saw in the previous season, that was what was kind of the explanation of where it went, or maybe you lost your ferro rod. All these things could be just catastrophic if that's all you have is limited gear, which they do. that could put you in a bad space real fast. Number 7 is food poisoning, maybe because you didn't prepare the food correctly, or you're eating food that is inherently toxic to humans, and that would be a really big point to know the not only the wildlife but also the plant life in that area. So plant identification would be key. Number 8 is unclean water. We've seen this in a previous season. Someone did not purify their water correctly, and the contaminants inside the water got the best of them. So unclean water could be a pretty big deal, but I do believe that majority of these people, if not all, will probably boil their water very efficiently, and so they won't probably have any of those problems. Number 9, volatile weather. This is a very obvious one, but I think it's definitely up there. Snow, sleet, ice, rain, cold, winds. I mean, just the wind chill itself. I mean, this is a pretty big ordeal that people go through on an everyday basis, every hour. I mean, there are times that the weather isn't horrible there in Patagonia, especially here right before winter. But going into winter, I think we're going to have an amazing set of challenges just from the weather. And number 10, long-term health effects. This isn't so much something that they're probably going to be talking about, during the show or even maybe even toward the end of the show. But a few of them have mentioned this, especially in previous seasons, about their concern for how this is going to affect their body because it's tore their body down so much. And it's not just because of deficiencies in their vitamins or minerals or their all these things that are essential to keep your body functioning well in terms of nutrients, but also like your muscle mass and all that needs to be rebuilt. And so that could be a pretty big point of contention to worry about. So those are my top 10. If you haven't had a chance, though, to check out my new ebook, The Art of Prepping a Preparedness Review, it's on Amazon right now, and I'll have a link in the description box below. Thank you for all of your support. If you have, once again, any different types of I guess, points that you would like to make from this, I know some people would probably pick a few other things possibly as major threats. Feel free to chime in and share. I love to hear from each and every one of you. We get a lot of new subscribers every day, and don't be bashful. Don't be shy because everybody kind of learns from each other. Thanks again for your time and for watching. Take care.